This is He Knows Everything, bringing you the heat. We keeping a foot on the whoop, Nicks. We keeping a foot on the whoop, Nicks, and like the Tibetan Mastiff that I am, man. Like the Siberian tiger that I am, I'm applying whoop on immediate pressure. Because pressure does what? Heat versus pipes. Let's talk about it, man. Alright. Vasiliy Lomachenko and Gervonta Tank Davis. Let me explain something to you guys. Because I need to explain this in its most biggest picture so that you guys can get the scenario here. When we look at Vasiliy Lomachenko and we look at Gervonta Tank Davis, we see two guys in their last two fights, because they fought on the same calendar day, and that's not a coincidence. If you guys believe in coincidence, I can't help you out. That's not a coincidence. That is actually, in its most cold-hearted, unadulterated, and cut-through two-tone fashion, it's as simple as this. It's really basically guys that are going to eventually have to fight each other. But Vasiliy Lomachenko has business first. It's with the super duper hype job variation and Teofimo Lopez. They're going to get that rematch. They're going to get that running back. Bob Arum is an old car salesman, aka shiesty motherfucker. And he's going to do everything in his power to ensure that get back, that run it back mode, that rematch happens emphatically. In so much so that when it happens, the super duper hype job variation is going to get exposed. He's going to get done up. He's going to get basically castrated, and he's going to get obliterated in the boxing ring. The reason for this is because super duper hype job variations are what they are. Super duper hype job variations. They are hype jobs. Teofimo Lopez has not done anything, especially after he won the belt. No. Emphatically after he supposedly won the belt. We know it's a highway robbery, right? We know it's a boxing judging gifting decision. The reason why we know this is because his title defense against George Kambosos Jr., it was a two-prong issue. Teofimo Lopez cannot sell a chicken dinner, let alone a cookout. And he was ducking that free smoke from George Kambosos Jr. If you notice, George Kambosos Jr. was not afraid of the super duper hype job variation because he knows that he can expose the super duper hype job variation. When you're dealing with a super duper hype job variation, you're dealing with a super because it means super. You're dealing with a duper because it means duper. You're dealing with a hype job because it means hype job. You're dealing with a variation because that's what the fuck it is, a variation, a super duper hype job variation, hence the full vernacular at its truest and its most properest levels, because there's levels to this stuff, there's gears, like the great Meek Mill says. The bottom line is as simple as this. And once a super duper hype job variation, always a super duper hype job variation. He Knows Everything was trying to talk a lot of boxing community fan bases off the cliff with this kid. Y'all wouldn't listen because y'all was on this great white hope fiasco of knocking Loma down. But when you did this, you took away the prestige, you took away the allure, you took away basically the glamour of the lightweight division. You took away a luster that was there. See, the luster of the lightweight division is Gervonta Tank Davis versus Vasiliy Lomachenko. And we know Gervonta Tank Davis is going to tank his ass. He's going to literally tank him. We know this to be true because we can see Gervonta Tank Davis's latest performances. We can look at Vasiliy Lomachenko's latest performances. And if you're smart, the smart money, the box office money, the safe bet tells you that Gervonta Tank Davis literally tanks Vasiliy Lomachenko. This fight is still going to be a big fight in boxing. It's just not going to have the same allure and prestige that it once did because Bob Arum knows how to screw super fights up. It's in him to do that. And he does it via old car salesman, aka shiesty motherfucker stance. He thought that Teofimo Lopez was going to tuck ass and he was just basically going to follow the full super duper hype job variation script of basically doing the rematch, the trilogy, the courtlet. But the super duper hype job variation is afraid of free smoke, man. And we know, like the song says, if you want smoke, it's free. But you can't smoke for free. If you want smoke, it's free. But you can't smoke for free. If you want smoke, it's free. But you can't smoke for free. If you want smoke, it's free. But you can't smoke for free. We know if you want smoke, that motherfucker is free. But the smoke gotta charge and tax your ass while bulldozers steamroll and plow through you. But in this instance, the smoke is i.e. Vasiliy Lomachenko in high-tech fashion. We know he's not the Matrix, because if he was the Matrix, we wouldn't buy the damn movie. We know that to be true. We're holding script on that. We're holding serve on that. And we're not deviating from that. But he's high-tech nevertheless. And we saw the way he fought in Masayoshi Nakatani fight in opposition to the super duper high job variation fight. See, Vasiliy Lomachenko was boxed into a corner. The man had a shoulder injury, but he was forced to fight because Bob Arum's going to get his money regardless. And Bob Arum had to slap Vasiliy Lomachenko down a few pegs because Vasiliy Lomachenko was getting basically too big for Bob. Not too big for boxing, because Vasiliy Lomachenko is not box office like Gervonta Tank Davis. He's not box office like an Earl the True Spence. He's not even box office like the Charlos. The Charlos command pay-per-view numbers. But Vasiliy Lomachenko was the darling of Bob Arum's apple pie, if that makes sense. Basically, he treated him like a baby. In wrestling, they call wrestlers babies. That means the darlings. That means basically the creme de la creme. That means basically the guy that is looked like the way Roman Reigns is at this point. It used to be The Rock. It used to be John Cena. You know, it used to be Stone Cold Steve Austin, Triple H. You know, you had a bunch of darlings and babies in fucking wrestling. Randy Orton had a period of time. Now it's Roman Reigns. The bottom line in this most cold-hearted, unadulterated, and cutthroat true telefashion is simple as this: that Vasiliy Lomachenko was no longer viewed that way, and Bob Arum had to knock him down a few pegs. Bob Arum has done this before. He's done this with Manny Pacquiao, and famously, Manny Pacquiao was probably the one that suffered this fate longer than anybody else. Floyd refused to suffer it. That's why Floyd got his ass up out of there, because Bob could not finesse Floyd to losing. Floyd's not going to take no damn pain to lose, because it's a permanent stainage on a black fighter's boxing career. Timothy Knothead, aka Bullethead ass Bradley, had no fucking choice but to take it, because with him, he just got no fucking choice. He has to take whatever comes his fucking way. But the bottom line is as simple as this, and we have to call a spade a spade. We got to keep it real. We got to keep it a buck, and we got to keep it 1,000. Now, when it's all said and done, when we look at Gervonta Tank Davises of the world, we look at the Vasiliy Lomachenkos of the world, this is a super fight in boxing that has to happen. This is a super fight in boxing that will denote greatness personification. This is a super fight in boxing that's going to speak volumes. And the volumes that is going to speak, the denotion that is going to be, the underlying undercurrent that is going to take is as simple as this: that Vasiliy Lomachenko and Gervonta Tank Davis is the fight at the little man's division that is necessary. It is a prerequisite for the sport. We look at Ryan Garcia. He has mental PTSD, mental retardations, basically an Instagram fucking model. Doesn't want to fight Gervonta Tank Davis, but Gervonta Tank Davis called him out. He was called out on the red carpet on Hot Boxing, Mike Tyson's show. He looked like an idiot. We had Teofimo Lopez and Devin Haney. They don't want to fight each other. Devin Haney's a little email champion, capping ass dillo Devin Haney. We got super duper hype job variation. This is what we're left with at 135. 135 has literally turned the shit when the ranks was given to these guys. Because these guys at this division, they're not doing anything prominent. They're not doing anything of heavyweight lifting the notion that helps the sport, that gives the sport any credence, that gives the sport any substance, that gives the sport any validation, any certification, any authorization, and any verification. The sport is not given anything dealing with these types of individuals. So what we're left with, the identity that's behind it, the pedigree that's associated with it, is the fact that look at what 135 is at this point. You got a guy who everyone said, once he beat Vasiliy Lomachenko, he was going to take over the sport of boxing. We heard that from Teofimo Lopez Sr. My son will take over the sport of boxing. He will be box office. He will sell 10 million pay-per-views. This is delusion of grandeur. Delusions of grandeur. Or grandeur delusions. At its truest and its most properest levels. At its highest levels. Because if you don't have delusions of grandeur, or you don't have grandeur delusions, then you would understand that a super duper hype job variation, and i.e. Teofimo Lopez, cannot sell a chicken dinner, let alone a cookout. He cannot sell anything as it pertains to the sport of boxing. This guy is basically what we would say, if we're identifying it, as a guy who's the biggest hype job boxing has ever seen. So when we have Vasiliy Lomachenko get a TKO against a Masayoshi Nakatani who exposed and made Teofimo Lopez's name the infamous super duper hype job variation, it tells you everything you need to know. Gervonta Tank Davis is transcending weight class after weight class after weight class. We have not seen this since Floyd Money Mayweather. We have not seen this since basically what we would say Adrian Broner. We have not seen this since we've seen these guys go at it. Because the bigger picture, the bottom line, the bigger identity, the bigger association, the bigger accreditation, the bigger affiliation, the bigger pedigree behind this, which is very simple, is as simple as this. That when it's all said and done, this guy right here is doing what everybody else is failing to do. And it is because of his existence, his capabilities, his superstardom fashion, that the small man's game is still relevant in boxing. And I'm talking about the 130s, the 135s, and the 140 pounders. If it's not for Gervonta Tank Davis, this is completely disintegrated. Vasiliy Lomachenko gets a little percentage of it because, again, there's a prestige and there's an allure with this guy. But this is what boxing was robbed of. The infamous Tank versus Loma super fight. Because that fight right there, with Loma not losing to a super duper hype job variation, and Loma having the pedigree of him fighting Tank in his previous fashion, and Tank being the one to literally knock him out, that would have been box office for boxing. That would have been capitalizing boxing at its truest and its most properest levels. Now looking back at it, hindsight is 20/20 for these boxing community fan bases. They shouldn't have pressured Vasiliy Lomachenko, and Vasiliy Lomachenko should have just been able to fight George Kambosos Jr. and go that route. Because now when we look at it, because he knows everything, told you guys this, that route makes absolute sense for the sport of boxing. No other route makes sense but that route, because that route is the silver lining of the truths that's associated with the sport. Because when it's all said and done, Teofimo Lopez and Vasiliy Lomachenko are what they are. And it's basically them calling a spade here. It's them keeping it real, it's keeping a buck, keeping 1,000, and them basically showcasing that when it's all said and done, that they run the sport. And that sport and all roads leads to them in terms of the little man's division. This is what it boils down to. We've been robbed of a super fight at epic proportions and epic magnitudes. It's still going to be a great fight nevertheless. It's no longer super anymore. Because when you lose to a super duper hype job variation, it's no longer super. Because he's holding the super tag, but he's holding it from a duper hype job variation aspect. So because he's holding the super tag, super is no longer the title of the fight. But it's going to be a great fight for boxing still, nevertheless. Because Vasiliy Lomachenko proved in that Masayoshi Nakatani fight that when he has his faculties together, he has his shoulder together, he's not forced to fight a highway robbery, he can do to Masayoshi Nakatani what the super duper hype job variation and Teofimo Lopez failed to do. And Gervonta Tank Davis has proven to you guys, like his latest stunt when he went up to 140 and literally obliterated Mario Barros, he's the big fucking A. That's the cool part. That's the unadulterated. That's the cut through type of fashion. I keeps the foot on the whoop. Oh, niggas. I keeps the foot on the whoop. Oh, niggas. When it's all said and done, Gervonta Tank Davis and Vasiliy Lomachenko super fight was robbed. But boxing still has a great fight on its hands. This is why boxing community fan bases are smart. You better push for this rematch, this run it back of Vasiliy Lomachenko versus the super duper hype job variation. Because once Vasiliy wins that belt, he will fight Gervonta Tank Davis. That's the cool part. That's the underdog. That's the cut through fashion. I keeps the foot on the whoop. Oh, niggas. I keeps the foot on the whoop. Oh, niggas. This is, he knows everything. Check it out.